I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE symbol CRL and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of thebreaker.news. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob, you were in the lockup for the BC budget, the secret little enclave before they release it. What stood out in your mind, and is there anything we might be shocked by?
Well, it was really a stand-pat kind of budget. I think the NDP is doing things strategically. They made the difficult taxation decisions last year when it came to the employer health tax, as well as the real estate taxes they had. Those taxes took several months to come into effect, so there's no real new taxes in this budget, except for the one that was already announced, which is the increase of the carbon tax, which goes up $5 to $40 per ton. On April 1st, it'll go up gradually. A couple of years from now, it'll be $50 a ton. That's going to be a bit controversial because that will have an impact on fuel prices, which will have a ripple effect throughout the economy. We'll be paying more for a variety of things because it'll cost more to fuel things, to get things to market and get things to us. So that is going to be coming. It'll be a bit of a subtle change, but apart from that, no real new taxes. A lot of spending, about $1 billion in new spending, mostly social spending. But what I keyed in on were a couple of things. We've got a scandal right now in the legislature, and another $6 million is going to the Legislative Assembly. So they'll have an $83 million budget in the next fiscal year. Starts April 1st. The legislature, which is under a cloud of scandal, of corruption and waste, after Darryl Pluckus blew the whistle and called the RCMP to come in. And, of course, he released his report January 21st on some of the reasons why he called the police on Clerk Craig James and Sergeant-at-Arms Gary Lenz, both of whom were suspended November 20th, and whose tenure at the legislature could be called into question when the Legislative Assembly Management Committee meets on the 21st of February. So we'll see what happens there. But another $6 million to the NDP, and I asked Carol James about that. She didn't really want to touch that question. I felt that was rather unusual and rather unfortunate. Here's the finance minister who holds the purse strings of government, whose desk the bucks start and the bucks stop, and didn't want to answer the question about that. I found that very strange. As much as the Legislative Assembly might have asked for more money, they didn't have to get more money. And if I was finance minister, I would wait until the House is clean before giving them a single extra dollar. That's what British Columbians really should be expecting, is a more prudent approach to bodies like that, which are not right now covered by the Freedom of Information Law. House Leader Mike Farnworth has pledged to follow the advice of the Information and Privacy Commissioner and get the legislature finally into the FOI law, but we don't know when that will be or the details are. It's coming. That's encouraging that it'll be coming, but for now, the place operates in secrecy, spending $77 million this year, and next year $83 million. That's a lot of money. A lot of our money that is spent in secret, a lot of contracts done in secret. That's got to change, and I felt that was very interesting. The NDP would throw $6 million there, and then throw $2.4 million extra into government communications. So that the government communications budget in the next fiscal year will be about $38 million. This is the office of government, which is essentially the propaganda office of government. It makes government look better, the governing party look better. in all it does. Her explanation was that there's more social spending, so more programs that people will have to apply to, and people will have to know that these programs exist and how to apply for them. Therefore, they have to spend more money on advertising. Of course, government does have to tell the public about services and programs, but the way our governments do it historically in British Columbia has been scandalous in itself, that friends of the party end up getting government advertising contracts. Already friends of the party, friends of the NDP have received some contracts, companies like Now Communications, whose principals were deeply involved in helping John Horgan become premier in 2017, a company that started off back in the early 1990s under the Harcourt administration. It was actually formed by people who were part of the Harcourt campaign team, and they got into trouble back then getting some patronage contracts. This seems to happen under every government. It happened a lot during the Christy Clark years. Not so much during the Gordon Campbell years. He seemed to get it under control, although there were a few times where he was questioned about who was getting those contracts. But Christy Clark didn't mind because by the time she was in power, the media had changed, and the media wasn't covering these kind of interesting stories much anymore. I still think it is important to see who is managing the message and massaging the message, and who's cashing the money, our money, in order to do that on behalf of the political party. There really don't exist controls in government advertising in Canada like there are in other jurisdictions, especially in the United States. If you watch some of the Seattle TV programming on your cable here in Vancouver, you don't see very much in the way of Washington State government advertising. You might see their lottery corporation, their version of BCLC advertised, but that's a commercial enterprise owned by the people. But you don't see as much image advertising to make the government look good, or the glitzy kind of ads that you see for the programs and services that are here. So there's $6 million extra for the Legislative Assembly, which is under a cloud of corruption and waste. $2.4 million extra for the Government Communications Office for advertising. But there's only about $200,000 more. Only measly $200,000 more for the Gaming Policy and Enforcement Branch. This is the office in government which enforces casinos and other types of gambling in British Columbia. Here we are in this money laundering crisis here in BC that the NDP have certainly banged the drum about. And as a journalist, I found enough evidence that says that, yes, there is a problem. But my question is the NDP doing enough to try to solve the problem, except by doing a lot of news releases and getting the media all buttered up in stories? When they're throwing only $200,000 extra to the office that actually oversees and regulates gambling, the office that employs people that go work at casinos to make sure that there isn't corruption and money laundering in casinos, only $200,000 extra so that their budget is still under $19.5 million. Something is wrong there. So you had $8 million to offices that really don't need it, and only $200,000 more to an office that really does. Something there is a little bit askew in NDP land. And I think that members, supporters of the NDP are starting to ask some questions themselves because of the recent campaign, especially by the BC Government Employee Services Union, pushing for a money laundering inquiry. Others are starting to question why John Horgan isn't moving fast enough to try to solve these questions, solve these riddles, find out what went on, and find out how to go forward. A public inquiry would be a great way to do that. We saw what happened at the Charbonneau Commission in Quebec about construction corruption and how there were people that were marched off to jail. There was accountability there. Well, why don't we have that here yet in British Columbia? The NDP response is that they're waiting for reports, two expert reports, one by a former assistant attorney general and another by Peter German, former RCMP Commissioner for Western Canada. And they're saying that those reports, when they're finished at the end of March, those reports will offer them a way forward which still could include a public inquiry, but it may not include a public inquiry. John Horgan is very bearish on the whole concept, says he doesn't want to have years and years of hearings and mountains of legal bills.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, the Trudeau government changed the law so that companies facing criminal charges could negotiate their way out. Somebody said it's like being a bank robber saying, I get off on the criminal charges if I return the money. Are there similarities to what's happening here in BC?
Well, we're seeing SNC-Lavalin dominate the headlines federally, and then that's why we saw that Globe and Mail story, which set this whole dominoes in motion that led to Jody Wilson-Raybould quitting the cabinet as the Veterans Affairs Minister after being shuffled to Veterans Affairs from Attorney General, where she was. And the story was that she's under pressure by the Prime Minister's office to negotiate this agreement, essentially a plea bargain, with SNC-Lavalin to avoid its criminal prosecution in Quebec over more than $48 million of corruption that it is alleged to have conducted in Libya during the Gaddafi regime years in order to get some contracts in Libya. And this is a company which has holdings across the country and which is very, very active in British Columbia, which may be more active in British Columbia than any other province, yet our governments here have really turned a blind eye to this, which is absolutely astounding that it's very possible that some of the money that British Columbia taxpayers paid SNC-Lavalin in order for SNC-Lavalin to build infrastructure could have made its way into the pockets of the Gaddafi family and could have ended up causing death of innocent people in Libya. So here we got this situation where the government is trying to keep companies alive. SNC-Lavalin's position is that, the people that caused the corruption, that caused the headlines for the company, are no longer with the company anymore. They've been fired. They've been arrested. They've been prosecuted elsewhere. They're not part of the company anymore. So all the bad apples are gone. Therefore, why penalize the company? Why penalize the current employees and executives when the company has done its best to try to purge itself of the bad apples? The question is, why don't we get an independent audit of that to see if, in fact, all the bad apples are gone? And if, in fact, all of our money that has gone to SNC-Lavalin has had value for money. And to see if the procurement processes that ended up for SNC-Lavalin becoming the contractor on these major multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects, as well as smaller contracts in different divisions, to see if the procurement was all done above board and everything was done with integrity here in British Columbia, or if some of the rotten activities that were unearthed in places like Quebec, its home province, and jurisdictions around the world, if some of that activity was happening here as well, or some of the people at the very large SNC-Lavalin office in downtown Vancouver here were involved at all in any of the bad deeds elsewhere. Some of the companies that were disciplined by the World Bank over the corruption in Southeast Asia, where SNC-Lavalin got a 10-year ban on bidding for World Bank projects, some of those subsidiaries tied back to the Vancouver office and their transportation division. So I think it's very important that these questions are answered, but it doesn't look like anyone really wants to answer those questions. Last week, the NDP actually put SNC-Lavalin, who's paired up with Acciona out of Spain, on the short list to build the new Patella Bridge. The other groups, one of the other groups also includes Kiewit, which was involved with the Port Mann Bridge, which of course had a very large cost overrun there, and the NDP never got to the bottom of that situation either. So here we got that happening, and the new budget this week by the NDP government includes money for the Broadway subway, the first phase to Arbutus, and of course, being a SkyTrain project, SNC-Lavalin is bound to be involved. SkyTrain is synonymous with SNC-Lavalin, and SNC-Lavalin has been involved in every single phase of rapid transit going back to the original Expo line in 1986. And there was a push by one of the city councillors in Vancouver, Colleen Hardwick, to try to get there to be a review of the relationships between the City of Vancouver and SNC-Lavalin. The past several years, 7 or 8 years, SNC-Lavalin has been paid about $2.9 million by civic taxpayers. And, she put this motion forward because the City of Vancouver Council had gone straight forward head first into endorsing a plan to get SkyTrain tunneled from Arbutus to UBC. That's not funded yet at all, but they endorsed that proposal a couple of weeks ago, and Colleen Hardwick, who's one of the newly elected NCA councillors, put together a motion to try to get that paused and for the city to look at its contract with SNC-Lavalin, but her motion was delayed, was supported by, of all people, Adrian Carr, the councillor with the Green Party. And the Green Party is now putting all its eggs in the whole basket for SkyTrain to UBC. So we're in this bit of wilderness, and I've been pointing this out for several years. I did a story for the Georgia Straight back in 2014. Look at how SNC-Lavalin is, they're there. Every aspect of the economy here in British Columbia when it comes to government infrastructure, SNC-Lavalin's involved. Even our drinking water. They were involved in the Capilano-Seymour filtration plant project. So SNC-Lavalin's involved, in BC Ferries, Vancouver International Airport, SkyTrain. They were involved also in the Village. They had a contract there. They've been involved in various environmental projects. They were involved in the cleanup for Mount Poly after the dam break back in 2014. This is a company which has its hands in our pockets, doing work to build infrastructure to power our economy, and very few people are out there in politics, in government, that are actually standing up and saying, hey, wait a second, let's push pause, let's make sure everything's on the up and up, and make sure that there's value for money. Meanwhile, you have the situation federally with Justin Trudeau, who has not answered to anyone's satisfaction what went on in this scandal. And meanwhile, you've got Jody Wilson-Raybould, who has consulted a lawyer who wants to speak her truth, but of course is bound by all sorts of privilege and confidentiality when it comes to these things. And the other parties in Ottawa, the NDP and the Conservatives, have been calling for public inquiry to get to the bottom of what went on, and if there really was political interference in the Prime Minister's office exerted on the Attorney General to then exert it on the Public Prosecution Service in order to negotiate the settlement. Why this is important is because in Canada we've got a rule of law, and we've got a separation of offices, separation of branches of government, and the Prime Minister's office is not supposed to be able to tell courts or the prosecutors what to do. We've got an independent judiciary, and if it's true that Justin Trudeau or anyone else in the Prime Minister's office exerted any pressure of suggestion by any degree, it's concerning and it has to be dealt with. Of course, earlier this week, Gerald Butts, the principal secretary, quit Trudeau's office. Basically, the right-hand man to Justin Trudeau and one of his longest serving friends has gone out of the office. He issued a Facebook a message basically saying that he didn't do anything wrong, but he was leaving anyways. That seems a little bit conflicted. If he didn't do anything wrong, why would he go anywhere? But no, he says he didn't do anything wrong, so he's going. That's not going to solve this at all. I think a public inquiry will. But then again, if the Liberals don't submit to a public inquiry, and if Jody Wilson-Raybould doesn't put her truth out there sooner than later, there is one public inquiry that is scheduled. It's actually October 21st. You put it in your calendar. That's when the citizens of Canada will get a chance to vote on whether to have 4 more years of the Trudeau government.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, very quickly, if you could, the founder of Huawei says his daughter was arrested in Canada for political purposes. Do you buy his argument?
No, I don't, because Huawei has had a long list of questions over so many years about theft of intellectual property as well as espionage. And the evidence that the U.S. put into courts back in January and start of February, as well as evidence that it is used in order to ask the government of Canada to allow this to go forward, the prosecution service to go forward for an extradition hearing is pretty convincing of alleged fraud that Huawei, especially Meng Wanzhou, the chief financial officer who's living in Dunbar right now, misrepresented the status of a company called Skycom, which she claimed was independent, was beyond arm's length of Huawei, but it was incorporated as a dummy company, according to the Americans and their evidence, a dummy company to enable transactions with Iran to sell technology from Huawei from China, despite the trade embargoes and sanctions against China. So I think there's enough there. It didn't help the cause, though, when Donald Trump said back in December that she could be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations for a new trade deal. That didn't help at all. Especially didn't help the law enforcement officials and the prosecutors who've been building the case, who've gathered enough evidence over the years that this company is one that we may not want to deal with, especially a company that is so intricately connected to the Chinese government, a company that has, because of Chinese law, a Communist Party cell inside. So as much as Huawei can say that it is not collaborating directly with the Chinese government, it does have a Chinese Communist Party cell inside the company as per Chinese federal law. So essentially it does have a door into the Chinese government, and the Chinese government has a door into the company. Is that a company that we want to entrust with our data, with our voice communications as we go forward to the next generation of wireless and internet technology?
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of thebreaker.news. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.